So, no idea what this hand is because some of these are a bit older. Not really old, but like within the last month, basically.
That's cool. We'll just go through
Yeah.
them and
Yep. So aces. Well, technically we're effectively under the gun +2, but obviously this is an open. So just to note here, I opened 4x my entire range under the gun +1, under the gun +2.
yeah, I think
Um,
that makes a lot of sense.
yeah, so it's obviously not a sizing tell. It's just my entire range that I'm opening at this point. I'm opening for that size. So we open. The effective button calls. Big blind calls. Flop is 8-8-7 rainbow.
Okay.
So 3 players. Checks to us. We bet about half pot. Seems pretty normal. Effective button folds. Big blind calls. So at this point, I guess there's not too much to discuss here. Checks
So
to us.
this is an interesting spot on turn, I think, because you have to think about the types of hands that are likely to call on the flop, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this guy was last to act after you bet. So like, right, you bet, and then the late position guy folded, and then this guy called. So he knew he was going to be last in the pot, so he can potentially have a wider range than like if the guy had called who still had
Yeah.
the big blind left. But but obviously like his calling range is going to be like sevens, any 8x. I don't know how much 8x he has from pre-flop. Plus draws, and the draws I think are limited to like 9-10 type things. Like it's not a whole lot.
Yeah, he has less
Um,
5-6s
he
defending.
also he also is going to have potentially any pocket pair, although I would assume nines plus are going to be more common.
Sure.
He's going to have like some sixes, some fives, like threes and fours and twos are more likely to fold the flop, I think.
Right.
But he's going to have more value, and some of that value crushes you. And he doesn't actually have that many draws. He has like 9-10.
Sure.
And that's about it. And I'm not sure he's even calling with all his 9-10. So one thing you could actually consider here is to check and then get your value on the river, because you're not going to be triple barreling this a ton.
Yeah. That makes sense.
But again, like I don't know what happens here, but that's just one line to consider. I'm not saying it's necessarily better depending on the player type.
Yeah, I have
But
him actually. I have a note
because
here that he's a loose collie fish. That's about all I know about this player right
okay.
now, according to this
So
note.
with that note, this is probably a fine barrel, and then you could consider getting 3 streets against a person like that. But typically, because this is generally going to be like a way ahead, way behind type scenario, right? Like he either has 8x or he has pocket sevens, in which case you're fucking crushed.
Yeah.
Or he has something like nines or tens or pocket sixes, in which case, yeah, like the river might sort of blow up your value a little bit because it'll make it harder for him to call. But at the same time, he might be more inclined to call because you check turn, and that way you look weaker. So,
Sure. That makes
so
sense.
I think giving a card here isn't the worst idea. But against a collie player, I would assume that maybe they'll pay you 3 streets with nines or tens. I would assume like 3 bets are common with jacks plus, so that's why I'm not including those a lot. He has those sometimes, but
Yeah, I mean, I think with an early position open like this, like player dependent, maybe like
yeah.
a tighter player might flat jacks, but yeah, I
I
mean
mean,
if he's like
it's a squeeze opportunity,
yeah,
but it just depends. Like
yeah,
jacks,
because
jacks could be
he
three
had
bet. I think
flattered as
queens and
well.
kings are very likely going to be 3 bet even with the early position raise.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Slipper, that is Turkfish. Turkfish is also in the chat. Um, oh, that's your buddy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, so that seems like a fair analysis.
But I like the bet against like a really loose player here. But then if they start going aggro on you, you got to be really careful, because if they're like loose collie passive, obviously when they show aggression, that's not great for you.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So yeah, he check calls. So the river's a 10. So as discussed, he has 10-9. So I guess the way this really only changes anything if he has pocket tens, right? Otherwise, we should
Right.
hypothetically still
Right.
be
I
winning.
think that tens is the only thing that changes it. It makes it obviously now you can get value actually from 10-9. You were never getting value from 10-9 on the river before.
Yeah,
Um, I mean, I think given the way this is played out, and given your stack size, you're fine getting it in, unless he is aggro on you, in which case it's a big red flag. So let's see what he does here.
sure. He pots it. Okay, yeah, so he
Yeah,
pots it.
this is a big, big red flag, and I think that given that you had got two streets of value,
Hmm.
I think it's gonna be tough for him to have anything. Like, is he turning his 10-9 into a bluff here, really?
Yeah.
Um,
Which is weird because if he has showdown value, he now beats ace king, ace queen, all the like random barrels that we have.
right, exactly. So I don't think that I think he's just like gonna be check calling with hands like 10-9 now. I don't like he could have bet them if the 10 hadn't hit. Like let's say it's like three of clubs or something, right?
Yeah.
He can now do this with 10-9 as a bluff, and that would make perfect sense. But now like there really are like no bluffs that he has other than 6-5, and I don't think he has very much 6-5 at all.
Yeah.
Um, so I think so. You need to be right. You need to be good here like a third of the time.
Right.
Uh, I'm really not seeing it, I guess, especially if we have the note on him that he's like loose passive.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't have too many detailed notes, which makes me think I didn't have a massive sample. But yeah, from what I
Yeah,
saw, it seemed like he was probably more of like, I call type of guy. You
yeah.
know what I mean?
I think I'm fine folding here,
Okay.
but it's obviously it's a tough spot. I just don't see the bluffs that he has.
Sure. All right, that makes sense. I'm gonna see what happens here. I don't remember. I call. He has 8. Yeah. So I guess.
So see there, I like check turn. It saves you a little bit of money.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Because then he's gonna pot the river, and then we can just
Yeah, then
essentially
you can
bluff
call it off
catch.
happily.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're bluff catching, and that way you get two streets of getting fucked instead of three streets of getting fucked.
Sure. No, that makes perfect sense. Um. All right. Let's check this out. The hand replayers are like loading slower than usual today for some reason. All right. Looks like this is 50 and L6 max. King 9 off in the small blind. So. Looks like it's gonna be blind versus blind. We open. He calls. Flop king 8-8. So probably a pretty standard c bet here, right?
Yeah, it's going to be standard for much of your range. Exploitatively, you can actually check here a lot, like as a huge exploit. It's bad if people are like paying too much attention to you.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you always like check with top pair in these types of situations, it makes you really easy to play against. But as an exploit, this hand is a really good hand to check with because your kicker isn't out kicking anything basically. Like it's out kicking like some real shit. You're losing to eights,
Mm-hmm.
and like you just kind of you feel like you're ahead, but like the only like real card that's ever going to beat you is an ace if an ace happens to come out. So like basically best case scenario, people are running like 3 outers or 2 outers on you, right? They either have a pocket pair and they have 2 outs, um or they have an ace and they have 3 outs.
Okay. Sure.
So like this is another way ahead, way behind type scenario. Like you're not like trying to deny equity from people. You're just like really trying to get to showdown with maybe getting like one or two streets of value here, right?
Sure.
So I do like the C bet here just because you don't want to be like super easy to play against, but I think that you're probably only going to be betting the flop and then you're going to plan to slow down on later streets.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. So yeah, it looks like we just bet half pot. He calls. Turns jack. So probably not a huge game changer. Again, I mean, if we were already outkicked with the king, then we.
It's good for you in a way because obviously he has less king jack combos now.
Yeah, that makes sense. But you said that you like a check here.
Yeah, I like a check here because
I think I continued, but I don't remember. But yeah, no,
because
that
think of his calling range, right? It's like a lot of king X and like some ace X, and
yeah,
maybe now you can get value from ace X turned into a bluff, right? So, um, but if you continue, the ace X is going to fold. If you continue, the king X is always going to call, and the king X is usually beating you. But the jack also protects you against king 10 now, like the 10 kicker doesn't play.
yeah, that makes sense.
So there's a little bit less concern there. So yeah, check is fine. Um, I he sizes up a lot there. I don't expect people to be turning their hands into bluffs there. Like he doesn't have like I mean, so I guess it's ace. It's only ace that's doing this. So I think that's fine. It's fine to call because ace can float you there and ace can bluff you there.
Yeah.
And then I like a check here again, obviously.
Do you think like what about like 10-9, Queen 10 combos that might
I don't
float
think
the flop
see
with backdoors?
10-9 I don't think is floating flop.
Yeah.
Like it's such a bad float that like if they're
not really
doing it,
relevant with blockers and stuff.
what was the other one? Queen 10. Yeah, Queen 10 isn't gonna have like I could see maybe like I just think those are such bad flops. Like if you're gonna if you're gonna float, I think you need to have an ace or maybe like backdoor suited shit. Like maybe like Queen Jack of clubs specifically or something, or like Queen 10 of clubs specifically.
Yeah.
Just for the backdoor equity, but you know, you don't. It's really bad to just float with like an undercard to what's on the board.
Sure. River, I'm gonna assume we check again after he bets. After he bets turn, so he pots it.
He just always has like an 8 here, right? Like I don't know. Just seems. Maybe I mean it could just be so. What this is, right? This is either he has a set of some sort, like maybe he has pocket jacks somehow. I don't think so. But like I think basically it's just either he has an 8 or he has some random bullshit air that he's turning into a bluff. And I think unless you have a specific read on him that he can turn random bullshit air like just ace X into a bluff, then I think this is a fold.
Okay.
Because on this site, right, like people just don't do that very often. Like sometimes they will.
Yeah.
And then you make a note of it and then you punish the hell of them next time.
Right. That makes sense.
That's the way I prefer to play this stuff, but
yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, I end up calling, I think, and okay, he has my exact hand. So yeah, so I remember this hand. I didn't make any notes specific on the player, but I wonder if I had some type of read, but my note was, why is he potting the river? Is this a bluff or is this a value bet? Like, it's so weird. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. No. And it's obviously it's good in that specific situation that you called. So the note you want to make on this guy now, obviously, is that overvalues like weak top pair hands, right? Yeah. Like but he's trying for 3 streets of value with like pot size bets on top pair weak kicker. Yeah. You know? Like on a paired board. Like that's obviously insane. But you know, your call works out for you this time.
Yeah, it's just
Like realistically, like if this is a thinking player, what can he ever get 3 streets of value from?
Yeah.
With King 9 against worse. Like, you know, I guess, you know, King 7 in this case is exactly the same. So, you know, basically he's either chopping here or he, you know, you're never calling with anything worse than a king. So he's either chopping here or getting beat. And I guess it could just be he's like turning his chop into a bluff, but like that's kind of weird, you know? Like he's just like bluffing to either chop or get you to fold. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah. Maybe the way it played out, like if he's just like really level 1 thinking, he's thinking that I bluffed the flop, I caught a jack on the turn, and he's just trying to get me to bluff catch or something. Who knows?
Yeah.
But, yeah, weird hand. I guess that's why I took it down. So, all right. So I have on this hand no read on the original razor. So 9-8 of diamonds in the big blind here. Do you think this is an okay defend, first of all, versus an under the gun open and a call in 6 max?
Um, I think it's a little hard because you have to play it out of position, but given that it's multi-way and given that you're closing the action,
Yeah.
I think it's fine. Your hand, you should like understand pretty well like what you can do with your hand, and people are probably, as long as you're playing the hands well post flop, I think you can make it profitable.
Yeah.
The less confident you are in post flop play, the less you would want to play this, because suited connectors are not easy to play necessarily, like especially out of position.
Yeah. So there's actually the book's in the other room right now, but so in that book I'm reading right now, in the beginning of it, there's a page where he's talking about like the difference. It was actually exactly 9/8 suited, and he was talking about why he would rather flat 9/8 suited on the button versus like
Yeah,
middle position open.
right, but again, the example there is on the button, right?
Yeah, no, no,
So,
no, for sure. And you're in position. You're in position. But
right.
like you're gonna be able to flop a lot stronger with a hand like this than you're gonna be able to flop with like ace nine or whatever, even though
Yeah,
like if you plug the hands in versus ranges, the ace nine type hands are gonna have better equity versus their range. Whereas a hand like this is gonna have
but
lower direct equity, I guess, but
this,
like
the difference is basically this hand lets you go stacks confidently more often than ace nine does. You're
yeah,
never wanting to go stacks with ace nine,
yeah,
because you're like if you get like top pair, you basically need two pair or better, which is extremely rare
exactly. Yeah.
to go stacks with a hand like ace nine. But like with this, you get so many more chances to get really strong hands, and that's obviously what you need to beat someone who's raising under the gun.
So as a default, let's just say that you're in my position where you don't have a read on this guy. I didn't note who this guy is or not, if they're overcalling or what, but if you don't have a read on this guy, are you going to be calling given a price that you're getting like this in the big blind with a hand like this?
I probably call given the price, but you need to be really careful. And I think it. So I haven't played enough on this site at these stakes, but
Yeah.
it depends on if you think you get like fold equity with shit like check raises too, because that's going to be a lot of your game plan, I guess.
Right.
For like standard suited connector play is like when you flop the way you want to flop, the check raise is kind of going to be your go-to.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. All right, so we'll check out the flop. So yeah, we flop second pair, backdoor straight, and backdoor flush. So
Mhm.
pretty weak flop for us. Obviously, there's turns that help us out, but not too much direct value on the flop. So we check to him. He bets $3. This guy calls. What are you doing here?
I think given again that it's multi, you're getting like a really good price right now. You can hit the backdoor equity. You can hit an 8. You can hit a 9. Those are usually going to be winners for you. And you have the potential to stack off against someone who very likely has an overpair the way that they're playing this. Not very likely, but like they have an overpair a lot of the time. It's not like that's
Right.
the only thing they have. But I think I'm fine calling here, and this is probably going to be the last street that I put money in unless something drastically changes on the turn.
Sure. Okay. So we call. Turn is a 9.
Okay, so this is again tricky. This is usually good for you, but then again, what's the thing we need to be concerned about here? There's actually two things.
Yeah, I mean we can run into sets, which we're blocking. Some combos of those.
The main set, of course, is tens. I
Yeah.
think. I mean, there's gonna be some threes, I suppose, but so yeah, tens, and then like hands like Jack Queen suited,
Sure.
and some Queen Jack non-suited as well,
Yeah.
but mostly the
And then
suited.
it's less likely, of course, but 10-9 and 10-8 are.
Yeah, I mean,
I mean 10. I guess 10-9 more often, but
yeah, I think those aren't super common,
sure.
but they'll be there. But you're doing pretty well right now. But
So we check down to this guy who bets $8. So this is obviously a check raise spot? Like, there's a lot of bad rivers for us, right? Or a lot of
I don't.
questionable
I
rivers.
guess okay, yeah. Jack is a bad river. Queen is a bad river. Um, and 7 is a bad river. So that's like 16 card. No, that's 12 cards. Like 25. But let's see. So like 25% of the time, roughly, you're gonna get a bad river. Is that worth check raising with a hand that, again, you're doing okay here. You're probably ahead, but are you going to be ahead against the kind of hand that calls it a raise? Like if he folds the raise, obviously you're winning.
Yeah.
If he doesn't fold to the raise, are you usually ahead there?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any notes on what type of player this is, so I'm not sure. I don't know if he might call us with, like, Jack 10, Jack 9, Queen 10. You know what I mean? Like, those, like, pair plus draw type hands. Like, I
I
think
would
that,
assume in most instances that's not going to happen. Just
yeah,
because like this board is so wet, it's so clear that people can have, I guess, over pairs or two pair type hands like what you have.
yeah,
Straights. Like straight is a real thing here, obviously. Like Queen Jack was never going anywhere on this board. You know?
yeah, no, yeah,
Uh, so I think I just take my chances at the like you're not really that concerned about like a 6 hitting the board. Like yeah, it's kind of a bad card. So like you're really looking at like 12 bad outs in terms of in terms of river cards. I think I just call and like take my chance at the 25% bad rather than trying to stack off here against someone who is you're probably ahead of him when he bets here, but I think if you raise and he calls your raise, you're not doing very well at all.
that makes sense. All right, I think I raise. Yeah, I just jam because there's like 20 in the pot. I have 40 behind. So I think he ends up folding. Yeah, he did. But
So
I just wasn't
that's
really sure
fine.
on like that.
No, that's fine.
Yeah,
Like this is what I mean. Like he's folding hands that you beat.
yeah,
You know, like he probably had like pair of tens there or something like that. That's totally reasonable. He might have had. I don't think he's ever folding jacks there because he has the open ended,
yeah,
and I just don't think he has queens that often. So I think realistically he has like a pair of tens there, right? Or like maybe like a hand like 8-7 suited.
mm,
You know, there's only two combos of those, but hands like that where maybe he had like a weak pair plus a straight draw, or he had top pair, but just in general, if that guy had called you, you're basically never ahead.
right. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I like that. Um,
And then you sort of prepare to like bluff catch the river in the case that you don't get one of those 25% bad rivers.
yeah. So if he ends up calling and the river bricks, then you go like check call there.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. All right.
Because you've disguised the strength of your hand so much that you can actually get potentially 3 streets, you know, of value from a
Right.
hand like ace 10 or something like that, which is going to be very likely for him to have.
It's weird. It's showing me. I've never used this avatar before, and it's using this avatar on me.
I think it actually changes the avatars sometimes depending on.
Well, yeah, I know it does for the randoms, but it's been
Yeah,
showing my snake up there because that's what I currently
yeah,
have equipped.
yeah, that was weird.
Um. All right. Yeah. So with this hand, we have queens in the middle position. We open cutoff calls, button calls. We get squeezed by the big blind. Says squeezer unknown. So we're effectively the middle position against an unknown. Do you think getting queens all in here is too light, or Because obviously this is like a really good squeeze spot, right? Like if this is a good player.
I think it's okay to get it in here. The nice thing is if you call, you largely get to play it in position.
Yeah.
And obviously this guy's the big threat in the hand, not the other two.
Yeah.
You get to play your hand in position against a range that's going to be like very ace weighted, right? He's going to have like ace king, ace queen, ace jack, and all like the really good hands like a pocket jacks, queens, kings, aces.
Okay.
That's like largely going to be like an unknown squeezing range, I think.
Sure. So I think I do go ahead and just call, play in position. They fold. Flop is 8, 3 deuce, pretty dry.
Yeah.
And
I'm just looking to probably get it in here because there's like one street of value left.
Okay.
And you're never folding.
Oh, so you would just jam here?
Yeah, I jam here.
Okay.
For sure.
Yeah, I just called.
Because
I guess I wanted to keep
see what
his
I mean?
bluffs.
There's one street of value left because what's the pot size going to be after this bet?
Yeah.
It's going to be like 48
right.
against a 25. See, now this is where it gets tricky. And like again, you just can't fold here, but you just have to jam, I think, on the flop.
Yeah, no, I like that because I think I actually do fold. Yeah, I fold.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like
it's obviously like disgusting to have to fold here. And sometimes he has a hand like ace queen or ace jack, right? And he's like he knows that you can have lower pocket pairs and he's trying to blow you off of those. Sometimes obviously he just has aces and you're getting your money in bad, but like if you're going to play queens at all pre-flop, which you absolutely should be playing it pre-flop even against his squeeze, I think you just need to jam flop.
Yeah. That makes sense. No teaser. This is Turkfish. Turkfish is actually playing Autism Heads Up later, so tune in for that. All right, let's check out the next hand. All right, so the next hand we have King Jack offsuit on the button. I have here that the person is a user never bluffing probably, which I think he's a reg. I don't really know because I'm new to 50 and L again because I just moved back down.
Right.
So, effective middle position limps, cut off, raises, I call. Big blind calls, limper calls. So 4 ways to a flop of Jack 8-6, 2 clubs. So we have top pair, and that's about it. Original raiser bets 5. So,
yeah.
Pretty okay call, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, like that's what you're looking to hit. He has ace jack, obviously, is like the primary concern here.
Sure. I go ahead and call. Big blind calls, and the under the gun limper or MP limper folds. 3 hearts doesn't change anything. Big blind checks. He checks. So now that they've checked, and we've got a few potential straight draws out there, and flush draws in which we don't block at all. Do you like betting here more and not letting those hands realize their equity, or
this board is extremely wet?
Sure.
Like, right, so you can't ever just give a card here. I don't think. It's unlikely that your main concern ace jack is a thing here, given that the villain checks again.
Yeah.
I just think you're so likely to be ahead in this spot that I'm probably doing something like I'm probably just like potting it here, or like very close to it, because you're not really trying to get you're like really trying to charge the draws heavily. That's going to be your main concern. There's like some queen jack type stuff in the range, but I don't think the value is like checking through. I think they're trying to see cheap cards, and that's what you want to avoid giving them. I think that like jamming it is probably a little too aggressive here, given that you're like 43 deep with the one guy.
Yeah.
But If you were only 32 deep, I would actually probably just jam.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Um, so we bet. Oh wow, we check.
Yeah,
Okay,
okay.
yeah, I mean that's. So for all the
But it's a
reasons
good
you listed,
river,
I
good
don't. Yeah,
river.
I hate a check there. I guess I wasn't thinking about that at the time, but yeah, there's just so many potential bad cards in the river.
Obviously, this is a fantastic river for you. Like now you're losing to like sets exactly.
Yeah. So, um, big blind checks. He checks.
And
I'm
then
assuming
you
we.
need to
Yeah, I'm assuming
bet
we
like
bet
eight. You
here.
need to bet like 17 or something here, probably.
Bet 14, so
Okay,
roughly
that's
like
fine.
3/4 spot. Yeah, I guess I can go a
Yeah.
lot larger because the turn check through. Don't we want our opponents calling with their draws? Yeah, no, for sure.
We assume that people are going to probably be overcalling with their draws. Oh, I would only overbet jam the turn if it's basically going to be pot committing people anyway. I don't think you overbet jam unless you're like 32 deep in like a 21 pot.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, because that
because
makes sense. Because if we bet 21 on the turn with his effective stack of
then
32, he's either jamming or folding.
he's gonna have like 10 behind at that point. So like you might as well just jam it.
Yeah.
But um, but that's why I was saying you don't jam it with the other guy being 47 deep.
Right. Um. Wow, this guy jams.
Yeah, this is just like an easy call. Like sometimes he has a set, but you know.
Sure. Oh wait, this is never bluffing. Probably that's okay. So not this guy.
But he should have been raising his sixes and eights.
Yeah. So he shows up with ace six. So
Yeah, he's
this.
just turning his hand into a pure bluff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so no, the only note I had on this hand was that username never bluffing. Probably I thought it was him, and that's why I was wondering why he had
Mhm.
such a weird like low ISO sizing.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah, I don't know why I checked the turn like for all
You
the
don't need to
reasons.
pot specifically, but like you want to size up really high.
Yeah,
Like
which
I would say,
either
like
way, checking is like the worst
yeah,
possible option there
yeah,
probably. Just because there's so many horrible rivers that we have to fold to, and even if it's a bluff, like you
yeah,
know, it's gonna be rough bluff catching there.
yeah, absolutely. Because we just assume that the way the hands played out, they're like I don't even know why that guy called with I mean I guess he's just like hoping for his five outs or whatever with ace six, but
Yeah,
it's just it's not like he's ever like winning with that.
yeah. No, that was a strange hand. So ace jack offsuit on the button here. Cutoff raises. We three bet, which I kind of roll the dice in my head on this. Sometimes I'll just flat hands like this in the button, and sometimes I'll three bet. Um, small
Yeah, I
blind
think
cold calls. What's that?
yeah, I think this can go either way. It's nice because it like dominates so much of their opening range,
Exactly. Yeah.
but it's also nice because you're so far ahead of their opening range
Yeah.
that like you expect them to like call three bets too commonly out of position. So like three bet is probably going to be more profitable on average, but like there are some merits to flatting, as you said. So
Sure. I actually remember this hand, and I totally like. I played it really bad. So just a heads up.
okay.
So small blind cold calls, cutoff calls. Flop is ace 10 deuce. So we have top pair, we have backdoor clubs, we have backdoor straight. We have quite a few possibilities on this board. So
Keep in mind with the backdoor clubs, what is on the board? The most important thing for a club draw.
yeah, well, yeah, that makes sense. The
Ace of clubs is on the board, right?
Yep.
So like they're club combos, and you have the jack of clubs. The like king queen of clubs is like really about it. And I mean, obviously there are other combos they can have, but like king queen of clubs is by far the most common club draw that anyone will have here.
Yeah.
And that's one combo. So like you have 8-9 as well, 7-8, and then like some like just random bullshit that people are playing horribly. But there aren't very many club draws here. Like it might look like, oh, there's a club draw on the board, but like realistically that's not a huge concern.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. So with this, with the action here and the small blind cold calling, I don't have a read on this player, by the way.
Hmm.
Cutoff calling. What are you doing here? Are you checking back? Are you c betting?
I think so. I'm I'm a huge fan, and this is like very exploitative of me, but I'm a huge fan against people like this of checking weak aces when I have top pair and it's dry board.
Mm-hmm.
I consider this a dryish board because of what I said about the club draws and like there's only gutters available,
Okay.
right, for the straight. I
Right.
consider this a pretty dry board. And what are you beating in terms of aces?
Yeah, I mean basically just like the rag aces. If
You're
this is some
beating
like
ace
super
nine and
loose
worse, right? So you're
collie.
beating ace nine and worse, and you
Yeah.
three bet. So like the ranges often like obviously change quite drastically after you put in that three bet. So you're beating ace nine and worse in a three bet pot. It's not like your hand is getting a ton of value here.
Right.
So I go for a check here.
Okay.
Just
So this is actually
exploitative.
the spot that I said I played it bad because I showed this hand to a few people. I don't remember who specifically said it, but they hated a check here. I did check here actually. Um,
So like obviously now king queen gets there, and that's bad for you. That's actually not a great card for you.
yeah.
But um but you can't be results oriented in terms of like, oh, like one of the bad cards got there.
Yeah.
You
So
know, maybe it's okay just to fold out the gutter draws because people will have a lot of gutter draws. But again, you have 12 cards that are bad, and you're going to be betting the turn.
yeah.
You know, so you have 25% chance to hit a bad card. On the flop. I mean, on the turn.
What do you?
Maybe it's worth betting. Like you could bet something like small-ish on the flop or something.
Yeah.
But I definitely don't like the normal continuation bet sizing there. So anyway,
Okay.
let's see what happens on the turn.
Well, did you notice what teaser said as well?
Yeah, I think that's fine. I think that the difficult spots though only really come up if one of those 25% cards comes up.
Yeah,
You
that
know,
makes
it's
sense.
it's going to be four kings, four queens, and three jacks that can
Yeah.
come up, and those are the only times you're ever going to be in a difficult spot. So I do think that makes sense as well. It's just it kind of depends on whether you want to sort of roll the dice on letting them get one of these cards that can make your life difficult. You know, 75% of the deck is really easy to play your hand with, in my opinion.
Sure. That makes sense. So checks, cutoff checks. We bet 8.
Yeah, I think that's probably good here. You can now there's like 8 9 suited that's dry, and there actually are diamond draws here, so you could actually probably bet something like 10 because this board actually gets a lot wetter than like that jack of diamonds makes things a lot more draw heavy than it
Sure.
was before. So I do think that you can size up a little bit here, but you know the bet is reasonable.
Okay. I think we get clicked. Yep, we get min clicked by the small blind here.
Okay,
So
that's kind of gross because
yeah.
now any call is threatening your stack, obviously.
Yeah.
I think honestly this is a jam or fold spot, and I don't think you can really fold given your exact hand. I think you're just supposed to jam it here
Okay. Yeah,
because there can be draws.
I'm pretty
Because
sure.
they're going to be like shoving the river. I think
Yeah,
that's
exactly. Yeah, I think. Yeah, that makes sense. I like that. Hmm.
And that way, if they do have a draw, then you can get your money in against it
Right.
before they know what the result is.
Yeah. I end up just flatting. Like I did. I definitely knew I couldn't just fold. But yeah, flatting is pretty awkward. I think that's what I did. I call the river is just obnoxious.
Yeah,
Obviously.
like the nut worst card, and then you have to fold the river. But
Yeah.
you know, sometimes they have king queen there, That's like definitely within their 3-bet flatting range, I suppose.
Yeah,
But I just think your hand is a little too strong to fold there, and I think you're probably supposed to jam.
sure. Okay. So yeah, they jam. We obviously fold.
Mhm.
Um,
And yeah,
so
if it, the way that Sir is saying to bet flop to make the turns easier and you can sort of avoid difficult spots, like that would have avoided that problem here. And so like there definitely are two ways to play the flop in this spot because of the gutters do become relevant
hmm
in this type of situation. I think if you play it more aggressively, it's a little bit less relevant. Like if you played aggressively on the turn, it's I don't think the turn is like that hard. Like if you play the turn correctly, I think it's like an easy jam, and I think it's sometimes you're going to be behind, but sometimes now you've induced like a flush draw to get it all in or something.
right.
So
They could just be derping when they pick up the flush draw exactly. So
yeah, so I think either way is fine. And I have to like really think about it to know which is better, but I definitely don't hate betting there either. Like
yeah,
either way it's fine. I just um heads up, I would definitely check. Multi-way betting has more merit.
yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
Like
Uh,
if it's four ways, I'm definitely betting there.
yeah. Next hand I have no notes on, so I'm not sure. All right, looks like we're middle position with ace king, so of course we open. Button 3 bets. Big blind folds. Is this a 4 bet or a? Do you ever flat with ace king here out of position? Like, do you think
I
that's
don't I
pretty?
don't I don't like flatting out of position. I'm probably just it's gross or whatever because people aren't 3-bet bluffing.
Yeah. 1 second here. So teaser says, what do you put him on when he checks the flop and turn after it checked around on the flop? Yeah, I basically thought like exactly king queen was super possible, of course. Like, oh, here I hit my gutter on the flop. Now I'm gonna check to these guys and let them bet so I can min click whatever. You know what I mean? I guess yeah. Sometimes like he picks up backdoor diamond draws and
Yeah,
stuff like that.
even if he has like king queen there, it is kind of weird that it's like, oh, I'm just like gonna let these like flush draws potentially check through.
Sure. Yeah.
And even if he has like king queen of diamonds, right? Like the clubs could come through still. So I
Yeah.
don't know.
I mean, I'm assuming he's a weak player anyways because he's just like cold calling a 3 bet out of the small blind. So I don't know. Maybe he's not thinking about. Maybe he's just sure that someone's gonna stab it at this now because it checked through on the flop. I don't know. I see some really weird play. Obviously, it's global. So, um, yeah. So, anyways, so we agree that 4 bet is better here. Um, so I do 4 bet.
I probably size up more out of position. I think. Like I just think people are gonna be a little too colly, so like maybe like 16
Okay, that makes sense. He calls.
makes it a little bit easier to play post flop. But
Yeah. Um, Flop is 6-4-4 rainbow, so obviously like a super irrelevant board unless he has some type of flush draw,
yeah,
which we don't block any of that. So, um, probably a pretty standard continue with our entire range in this board.
I think that's right. I think given the 3-bet, I think you can, and the dryness, you can probably bet like 10 or 12 here. Like 12 probably makes sense.
All right, I bet 9. I just figured like if I could continue like generally on in like 4 bet pots. Whoops. Well, sorry. I got ahead there. So yeah, generally in like 4 bet pots like this, I bet really small, like a third or a tiny bit smaller with my entire range.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, it definitely should be under half. Like it's just it's preference on what it should be exactly. There
yeah,
is a flush draw available, and you don't have any of the hearts, so you
yeah,
can size up a little bit more given that. But
yep. So on this turn, um, what are you doing?
um, well, I'm not betting. The question is whether to check fold or to check call.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and
Are you check calling with aces and kings here?
I think that I think I like check calling with aces and kings, and I think I like betting with like queens and jacks
Because you don't
because
block.
they're more vulnerable.
Because you don't block ace king.
Well, no, they're more vulnerable. So like, well, with aces and kings, right? You can check with those hands, and then like you're not as vulnerable to overcards coming on the river.
Yeah.
So your hand is fairly secure. It's a way ahead, way behind type scenario, right? So like you actually like if so we're not that deep, right? So it's not a big deal. But like let's say we're deeper with him, and you bet your aces, and then you get raised. It's like kind of gross depending on the stack depth, right?
Yeah.
So like you can do it for pot control, and you can do it because your hand is relatively stable. It's relatively immune to what's coming on the river.
Yeah.
You know.
That makes sense.
So I like playing it more passively with aces and kings, and you can play more aggressively uh, with jacks and queens. And then I think the question is whether to check call or to check fold here, because I don't think that pocket pairs are going to be folding when you bet here, and I don't think that ace queen is a lot in his range, and like that's the only. And I don't think you're getting value from ace queen when you bet here. So basically, by continuing here, you are trying to make your life easier against a hand like ace queen or ace king, but you're not actually trying to get worse to call. So I'd like a check, and then you bluff catch here against a hand like ace queen.
Sure. I think I jammed because I figure like I'm doing this with aces, kings, and queens in this spot.
To me the board just isn't like if the board is like 9, 10, 5 of clubs or something, then you jam in those spots because you're trying to deny equity, right?
Yeah.
But I don't like a jam here with aces or kings.
Okay, that makes sense. So, yeah, I jam, and I'm pretty sure he calls me with jacks.
Yeah, and like I said, I just don't think you're ever getting jacks or any pocket pair really here to fold.
Sure, that makes sense. Makes sense. All right, looks like I had a note on here asking if this is a bad triple barrel versus a fish. I think most triple barrels versus fish are probably pretty bad. So
Is this a bad triple barrel versus fish? Yes.
Yeah. So all right, let's watch the disaster. So I have
Okay.
7-6 offsuit in the small blind. That's not a good way to start this out. All right, we got 7-6 off. It looks like it's gonna be blind versus blind. So we've got a fish in the big blind. We're in the small blind. Apparently, also a fish. 7-6 off. We raise. He calls. Flop is queen 8-5. So pretty okay flop for us to continue on. Obviously, we're open ended.
Mm-hmm.
We have a decent amount of queen X combos.
You're open-ended, and it's a relatively dry board overall.
Yeah.
The villain won't have that many draws and things that will be, like you're gonna get a lot of folds by continuing here.
Yeah.
Essentially,
We're gonna make
So
make the best hand like every time basically when we hit our card as well. So
yeah.
So I continue. For 7, he calls. Turn is an ace. So what do you do on this card? And I'll kind of explain why I barreled this turn.
So I think what you're gonna say is that you're barreling the turn to try to get queen X to fold. It's not clear. What do we know about him? He's just a fish. What's the read on him?
Yeah.
Like against like a, the nittier the player is, the more you can get away with that. Like he just has queen X here a lot, and it's not clear that you're ever getting him off queen X unless you triple barrel with, like you're gonna have to bet turn and bet river typically to get someone with queen X to fold.
Sure.
And if it's a fish, they're not folding their queen X even with the triple barrel.
Yeah.
So it's just, it depends on your definition of fish, right? There are nit fishes, there are loose passive fishes, but like typically when someone says fish without any other context, I think of loose passive, doesn't raise very often, calls way too often, that type of thing,
Yeah, I don't have any specific notes on that. To be honest, like when it comes to those simple tags, like those tags of a player are so simple, yet for some reason I have trouble identifying them, because that's something you ask me a lot. You're like, well, you're sending me this hand and you're telling me this is a fun player. what type of fun player is this? There's 100 type of fun players, and I always have trouble telling you what type of fun player. You know what I mean? Like, so, um, yeah. So, anyways, I don't know what type of fish this is. I guess I don't have it noted here, but so I guess my reason for betting this turn was we still have fold equity for hands like obviously like hands like 8x and maybe even 5x if he calls those type of hands in the flop. They obviously dislike an overcard a lot unless they make like two pair or something. Um, so I have fold. I still have rivers, right? I still have good rivers, obviously, but right now I have basically zero showdown value. I also have a lot of ace X's on the flop that I'm just like gonna be c betting dry flops like this, and then turning a pair. And obviously, if I turn a pair, I can continue and get called by like you said, Queen X. Probably not 8x at this point with another overcard. But
Right.
yeah.
So, here it's kind of rough, but like, Queen X, maybe it checks through if they have Queen X. You're never getting Ace X to fold.
Yeah.
Like Queen X, like I think you're getting a check behind a decent amount,
Yeah.
so you can kind of just check here and like I don't know. I just like running, like putting a lot of money in with basically triple barrels get exponentially more pricey. Like the first bluff is really cheap. It costs you 70 cents. This one's going to cost you like $2.
Yeah.
The last one's going to cost you like, like $6 or $7. I don't know, maybe more, depending on how you want to size it. So
Yeah.
it gets expensive real quick to pull these triple barrels if they're not working out very often.
Sure, that makes sense. So you prefer a check here, and then reevaluate like if he bets, find out if we're getting the right price to hit our draws, and then kind of figure out what we think he's betting with to see if we're getting like implied odds get paid off if we hit our draw type of thing.
Yeah.
Okay. So I bet because I hate money.
But you see what I mean? I just don't think that they're folding Queen X enough, and you have to commit to the triple barrel.
Yeah. Yeah. Any merit to check raise in the turn teaser? I think that's kind of kind of player dependent, right? Like if we like if we know we're up against somebody who's bluffy and floaty, maybe.
I think a check raise could be reasonable, but again, like if we think that the person's calling with Ace X, I'm not sure how many Ace X's are folding here.
Yeah.
But I think it's okay. But again, remember you're in a small blind versus big blind scenario. I don't think that if you're trying to wrap the nuts, like people are just less likely to believe it, in my opinion, in a blind read blind scenario.
Sure, that makes sense. So as I said, I triple barrel, so he obviously calls. Turn is a 5, so it's probably the worst card I could.
Yeah, and you cannot bluff here. You don't rep a flush draw very well here at all.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Yeah. I guess. Yeah. I mean, like I have like one club in my hand. It's not even a relevant blocker, obviously. So.
I mean, it is relevant. Like he might have had like 6, 7 of clubs, but now that's out of the question, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So like now it's like
That makes sense.
But it's. But I don't know. I just.
Oh, so I did work. Okay, so it worked, but it was.
I don't know.
Bad.
I don't know. Like I don't know what he's. So I guess he just. So this is the type of player who, like I said, you have to commit to the triple barrel to get Queen X to fold. I just assume, in this case, that he just has Queen X a lot.
So he probably has. He could even maybe have like 10-9 or Jack 10 if he's really cally and like he's just digging for that gut shot, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. I don't really have specific notes. So yeah, obviously understanding better what type of player I'm playing against is gonna kind of.
So right, like if you know that the player is capable of folding second pair to a triple, then like I said, if you bet the turn with the intent of getting Queen X to fold, you have to know that that's never going to work on the turn, but it might work on the river if you continue.
Yeah.
Right. So.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's fine against a specific type of player, but again, I just don't know what type of player that is. And this is what, 20,
Yeah, this is 20.
I'd be more likely to run that kind of thing at like 50 or 100, I guess, but
right. No, that makes sense. says original razor is a fish. That's all we know. So we have some type of fun player as the original razor in this hand. We are the effective button with Jack 10 of diamonds. So he min raises. Obviously we're defending here. Small blind calls. Flop is ace 6-7. So we have a backdoor straight and a diamond draw here. Yeah, there's no. Yeah, we're live. Sorry, D-Man. No delay. No delay. So yeah. So we flop a flush draw and a backdoor straight draw. Small blind called. We called. The original razor checks. So 3 ways here. Are you just checking back? Are you betting?
So sorry, can you just like rewind because I was a little distracted? Can you just like rewind and like kind of just step through everything so I can see the positions?
Okay. Yeah, so we're four-handed. I'm on the button.
Okay.
So effective cutoff, min raises. We call on the button.
I'm not sure that I like a. Okay, so I'm not sure that I like a bet here on the button because I don't think that you're getting the blinds to fold. The guy in the blind to fold very often.
Yeah.
Ace X is obviously like a big trigger for people to defend their blind. But again, it's gonna work sometimes, and then you get to sort of determine what happens on turn on your own. So yeah, actually, like kind of just hope for like King X in the blind, and then the open razor to have whiffed. Yeah, so I think you bet, and then you plan to sort of evaluate turn and probably check a lot of turns.
Okay. So checks to us, we actually check back. I guess, I don't know. Yeah, I guess betting there makes sense. I guess my issue is like, it's really annoying if I get check raised there by like 2 pair or like some other flush draw that happens to be out there and check raises me. And puts me in an awkward spot. So I guess I would just rather...
That's true, but I don't think that 2 pair is... Like, what are the hands that are check raising you there?
I mean, 7-6 is like the only 2 pair. If he has like 7-6 suited that he flattered with in the small blind.
So there's 2 combos of 7-6 suited.
Yeah.
Right, so like, it's just not a huge concern. Like, obviously check raise is annoying, but it's just not a huge thing. And honestly, check raise can save you some money because a lot of it is going to be King X suited. And you don't want to be fucking around with that, so
yeah,
like King X diamonds, right? Like you don't want any part of that,
right?
So I kind of like. I think I like betting, and then you retain betting control through the turn.
Yeah,
and then it lets you see like free cards on turn because you assume that they're not folding their ace X. You don't want to like double barrel into ace X, right?
Yeah.
So you would have bet flop, and then you could check this turn and see a free card.
Okay, that makes sense. What is your flop?
I would have bet like probably $1 or $1.10.
Okay.
Flop.
So like
you
size up. So like 3/4 roughly.
Yeah. Just because it's multi-way and there are like draws available.
Yeah. Makes sense. So we decided to check flop. So he leads for pot out of the small blind.
Mm-hmm.
The original razor flats. So we're obviously probably not looking to fold here, right?
I think not. If it had been a spot where the original razor folds, you could consider a fold.
Mm-hmm.
But here I think you're just getting too good of odds to hit what are very likely going to be nutted hands.
Right.
And one of them is pretty disguised, right? Like if the 9 comes, someone has 10. I guess it reduces it a little bit because if with your backdoor straight, if a 9 comes and no one else has 10x, then obviously you're not likely to get stacks in.
Sure.
But if someone else does have a 10x, you are getting stacks in and you're winning. So I think a call is fine, and then you can. It's for the implied odds essentially.
Right. Okay. So we raise. Okay. Interesting. I normally wouldn't raise in this spot. That's interesting. That I don't even know why I did that. To be honest. I guess the only reasons I could think of that I would raise here is The original Razor looks pretty weak, right? So he obviously doesn't have a hand that he's like in love with. He checked the flop. He just called the turn. We don't. We have plenty of outs to the river, obviously, but even if we hit a jack or a 10, we're probably not calling like a sizable value bet. If we hit one of our outs like a 9 or a diamond, then yeah, like you said, we probably essentially have the nuts.
So I like to play for implied odds here, I guess, because I just don't know how often you're getting the folds, and like your equity here isn't great, right?
Yeah.
Especially against the hands that are fucking calling you. And sometimes you get called by like sometimes people like spaz out and call with like king queen diamonds. They'll call with like king 9 of diamonds, and then you're like really fucked.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if this is like a horrible mindset or not, but we also block the nuts, obviously. Like we could definitely play the nuts exactly like this.
That's true.
So I guess that's basically the story I'm telling.
But
right
again,
now.
the nuts was a gutter, so people are less likely to get.
Yeah, but the flop checked through though.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, you're right.
Otherwise, it's way harder to rep it. But
yeah, I think that you can rep the nuts here. I don't know that it's actually like working enough.
Yeah.
Just because it's like, are people really gonna fold their aces? I just like to play for the implied odds here, I think.
Yeah, such a disaster if you get jammed on here. No, you're very right, Teaser. It is. Yeah, he does end up jamming, and then we're fucked and we fold. And I screwed myself out of the hand, so so yeah, essentially I was trying to tell a story of, hey, I have 10-9.
Yeah.
While still having a reasonable amount of outs going to the river if we get called. But yeah, I mean, it's just probably setting money on fire pretty hard there, unless I have like a read that like this player's over bluffing turns and spots like that where it checks through. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And like people don't play poker at these stakes typically to fold. You know, they like to see hands and stuff, and if they have top pair, they don't want to hit top pair and then fold. It feels bad.
Yeah. And
I'm not. There are a lot of draws obviously on this board, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a flush draw, and there are open-ended straight draws. There are so many fucking draws you can have here that like by doing like this polarization shit you're doing, like people are gonna look at the value hands you have in the draws, and you just have more bluffs than value here, I think, typically.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, you're right.
Combined with people
especially
not
at
wanting
this
to
level,
fold,
like he could have ace queen for all we know, and he's just like, fuck you, I'm not folding.
I just think it's wrong to fold ace queen to the way you played it, even, like I just think it's wrong. But even aside from that, like you would need like a nittier player to even consider doing that. Like I would consider it, but I wouldn't do it. Maybe someone like Ryan's gonna fold it, but like it's just not gonna be super common that you're gonna get like ace x to fold, I think.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yep. So we fucking brutalized that hand. One of the many that I brutalized. All right, we have a note on this one that says too loose versus fish ? So we'll see what happens. Another 20 and L6 max. We have Jack 10 of spades on the button. Undergun limps, MP limps. We put in an ISO raise, I'm assuming, yes, of 1.2. Limper calls, another gun. So flop is King, Jack, 10. Oh, I sent you this hand.
Yeah, I remember this one.
So,
and this is just a spot where you have to think about the types of hands that are doing, like you have to think about their range like really carefully.
Yeah.
Because you can't just be like, oh, I have two pair here, it's the nuts kind of deal.
So I'll just kind of go through this one a bit quicker since me and you have already looked at it. So he checks to us, we bet, and he check raises pretty sizably. So yeah, my issue was it's like, oh man, there's so many draws out here. Like he has like king queen, king queen, queen jack, queen 10, even like ace queen obviously sucks, but he limp called, so I don't think he ever has ace queen. But then again, I could say the same about I don't think he has king jack, but he could have king 10.
He has king jack. He has king 10. He has queen 9. He has yeah. So I think king jack, king 10, and queen 9 are your biggest threats here. And what are the hands that you're really looking to get it in with? Like random queen X?
Diamond
Are they
draws, like yeah.
Yeah. So like the ace. Like queen of diamond draw is really disgusting for you, obviously.
Yeah.
And ace of diamond draws. Let's say like 9. Let's say there's like 5 ace of diamond draws that he'll play this way. Or 6. Let's say 6. 6 ace of diamond draws that he'll play this way. Compared to the combos of king 10, king jack, queen 9. I just think you're not doing well enough. Like king 10 is what, 3 times 2, 6 combos. Queen 9 is potentially 16 combos. Maybe not quite that many, but like let's say 8. Like we'll tone it down a little bit.
Yeah.
Do we really think like naked queen X is doing this like on a flush draw board? Maybe, but like I don't know, the board is so wet they shouldn't really be expecting to get a ton of folds from you. And it's just like a really bad play. Like if they want to play it that way,
Right.
I think you just like wait for a slightly better hand. You also have to consider your equities. This is something we discussed when we went through this hand. You have to consider your equities against the types of hands that it's not just like, am I beating this hand? Am I losing to this hand? It's like, what's my equity against this hand, right?
Yeah.
So what's your equity against king 10?
Pretty terrible.
Yeah. If I remember correctly, it's something like 10%.
Yeah.
And what's your equity against what's your equity against ace x diamonds?
Like 2%.
No, you're ahead. No, you're ahead against ace x diamonds.
Right. No, I'm saying we have like a 2% edge on hands like that though, because if ace X has a diamond draw, but they also have a gut shot.
Yeah, you have like I think you have like 55% equity against ace 10 diamonds.
Yeah.
Maybe 60%. So like you're barely winning against the hands that are shoving on you here.
Yeah.
And you're getting fucking crushed by the hands. So the hands that are beating you are crushing you. The hands that you're beating, you are barely beating.
Sure.
That's an
yeah,
awful
that makes
spot.
sense. So yeah, it's just...
So you have to really think through the equities, and I think you know when the combos are kind of close like that, you should always be thinking through like the equities on this type of stuff. But I think often it's easy to just say, oh, how many combos am I beating? How many combos are beating me? But you really have to think about like how far ahead you are and how far behind you are.
Yeah. And yeah, teaser, I think you always bet the flop here, right? Do you agree?
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah, it's like so wet. There's so many horrible cards, but like, yeah.
Because his semi bluffs, right, you're not doing so hot against. Like you're winning, but you're like not like, oh yeah, hell yeah, I got my money in versus opening a straight draw or something like that's not amazing.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. So yeah. Butchered hand. I think we can just fold here. We'll go ahead and show the results just so you guys can see how bad I am at poker. And I just suck out all over the place. So he had king jack. Easy game. Turn the 10. Yeah, but no, like teaser said, just like a better spot. Obviously it sucks to like bet fold bottom 2 there, but yeah, I mean, even like you said, even the hands that I'm ahead of, it's just I'm barely ahead of them, so. All right, next hand we have queens in the low jack. Cutoff is posting, it looks like. So we ISO raise 5x with the poster.
It's fine.
Big blind, 3-bet. Oh, I don't know why that went so fast. These players on here are shit. Anyways, he 3-bets. We just flat in position.
And call in position, I think, is reasonable. Just obviously, like if you're playing higher stakes against better players, typically their raising range is going to be a little bit wider.
Yeah.
You can 4-bet there, but like on what's this 50? Yeah, I wouldn't expect
Yeah, they're a
I
little
wouldn't
more value heavy
expect
most
I
of the
wouldn't
time.
expect your a 4-bet there
Yeah.
to be amazing.
Yep. Um, so flop is three deuce deuce two clubs, super dry flop. So this
Mhm.
is a really weird hand. This is versus someone named Moscow. I don't really know who this person is. I thought like I saw them at a lot of tables, so I assumed he was a reg, but like I don't really know. But look at this C bet.
Hmm.
It's really weird.
Um, normally I would call a c-bet, but here I think I jam because of the sizings, and you're like committing yourself anyway. You can't fold here, obviously,
Yeah.
so I think you just jam.
Okay. I like that more. I call. Um, I was really
Because you
confused.
just think about like, are you like think about the next street, right? Like what are you going to ever be folding on in the next street? If it's just an ace or a king, you need to jam, right?
Yeah, and like I thought that this card specifically was really bad for me too because obviously like one of the
It
hands
is
were.
bad for you, but like you just it just makes it so much easier. Like you don't want to have to fuck around, like let them see their equity if they're fucking with you, and like it's I don't know, like maybe sometimes by calling you get ace king when they miss their ace or king to double barrel on you. I don't think it's happening enough to make it realistic, but
Yeah.
you know, like ace king is probably just going to be like check folding a lot on turns, but you don't want them to see the turn, and you also want to get your money in against jacks or tens or nines even sometimes.
Right.
You don't want to let them see a hand, like let's say they have tens here. You don't want to let them see this jack roll off and then it's an action killer, right? And then
Right.
obviously if they have a jack, now they just fuck you. So
Yeah. So he like snap jams the turn. I end up folding, which is yeah. Yeah, I agree. Like just jamming the flop.
to a normal sizing, I think you can call, but like here you realistically should have been committed after the flop call.
Yeah.
So you should have just jammed on the flop because you I don't even know that it's right to fold the turn here. Like we could talk about it, doesn't really matter that much. I think obviously the key inflection point is the flop.
Yeah.
If he had bet a normal amount and the jack comes, now the pot's something more like 36 and you have like 34 behind, you could consider it.
Yeah.
But I think at these sizes, I think you're probably just supposed to call off even with the jack. I don't know.
Right.
Sometimes he has fucking ace jack here, right? So
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. Yeah. I was so thrown off by the. I was so thrown off by the flop size. It was just like, what the fuck is going on here? Why is he betting almost pot on just the absolute driest board you could think of? So. Yeah, Turkfish is too good for poker now. He just watches us little people play. All right, next hand. Yeah, next hand we have ace 8 suited on the button. This happens sometimes where it shows somebody's name and hand in a replayer. From what I've heard, it's if they also looked at the replayer, so that's interesting. So why is it showing his hand? That's actually really annoying.
that is annoying. But we can still talk through the ranges and stuff.
Well, I don't even know if he's in the hand. I don't remember this hand, to be honest. So it limps around us. Ace 8. I just limp on the button. What do you think about this, first of all?
Yeah, I mean,
It seems like I don't know, like, I don't know.
like it's weird, right? Like your hands.
These are collie stakes. This is 20 and out right here.
Yeah, I mean, if someone had raised, right, like you wouldn't even be playing this hand.
Yeah. And I feel like it's too weak to, like, throw in a large ISO raise. Because I'm making it, like, $1.40.
So let's see. So the issue is like, do you expect the villain, specifically the open limper, to come over the top and raise you? Because that's your main concern here, right? Like you're not too worried about the other players, and I do think if you can ISO villain,
Yeah.
He's obviously not a very good player. You
Yeah.
can read board textures and ranges better than he's going to be able to typically, and you can probably in position play your hand that is probably slightly behind his range but not too far behind his range. You can probably play it profitably. Here you're like looking to flop a flush draw, and then you're hoping that people give you the correct price to call through your flush draw. I
Yeah.
think I like an ISO raise here. And then you can fold if they raise you.
Too many people flatting ISOs here at these yeah, I agree, teaser. That's another reason that I didn't, because people are just like,
I
oh,
don't
well,
think
we're
the
playing
blinds
for
are going to be flatting it.
$20. What's
I don't
that?
think the blinds are going to be flatting it that often.
Yeah.
And yeah, if the shit.
Like
So like let's
we're
say
just gonna go 4 ways here often.
yeah, that's true.
Because as soon as this guy calls, the call train happens. Like that's just how these stakes work. It's just like live. This is 20 is live 1-2, man. Like this is how people play a live 1-2.
No, you're right. You're right.
You know.
Yeah, it's so dumb, but yeah.
Yeah.
Because you should be able to ISO him here, but
Exactly. Yeah. This would work in 100 for sure. So anyways, we take the passive route and just decide that, hey, we have a decent hand on the button. We're gonna play in position against.
You see, like your hand like isn't gonna turn into something very often. Like, cause here
Yeah.
now you have the flush draw, which is like, wow, this happens like 1/5 of the time.
Yeah.
And now it's like, okay, well, hopefully I can like actually see if I hit my fucking flush, you know? And
Yeah.
like that's not gonna happen that often. So like we'll see what happens. But
Yeah.
I think like suited aces are overrated unless you're playing them aggressively.
Yeah, no, I agree. So he min clicks.
God, this fucking guy.
Yeah. 20 man. He raises to 6, so pretty sick raise there. We just flat obviously because
I agree with that.
No point in doing anything else. He calls, so 10 on the turn. Interesting card because it obviously
but like it like crushes their ranges.
Yeah, it gives us a few more outs, but exactly, yeah. And how often are we really getting paid if a queen comes? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
He checks. He checks.
I think you're supposed to check here because I don't think you're getting folds here often enough, given how wet this board is.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm pretty sure I check back. Yep, I do. Okay.
Okay, cool.
So 8 on the river. Shouldn't change too much, obviously. He checks. That's a check. I mean, that's a check. This guy just flats. So
I think you're supposed to fold. I think you're supposed to fold after the other guy flats.
Well, okay.
because
so
how are neither of them having a pair here?
Yeah, I mean, my issue with this spot is like
it sounds so dumb to fold.
My issue is like this guy looks weak as fuck now. He raised the flop. Okay, I mean, I don't even know if you want to call it. Well, that's the thing though, is when somebody min bets like this guy did on the flop, it's almost like this guy just open bet because this guy essentially checked. But this guy raised, quote unquote, on the flop. He checked the turn and now he's just calling a min bet on the river.
Yeah.
So how strong is this guy really?
This guy isn't very strong, but I think he has like Jack X a lot.
And what do we think this guy has? Obviously, we know exactly what he has because we can see his fucking hand.
We don't really know what he has.
No,
like,
we don't. But
his hand is a huge mystery because he.
Yeah.
It seems like he's trying to get thin value. He's clearly not trying to get him to fold. I would say like a lot of like Jack X as well. Like I think like Jack X, like weak kings.
Yeah.
Like are going to be common. King Queen is like probably fucking top of his range, but
yeah.
I don't expect you to be able to like raise and get them to fold unless you do like some crazy overbet shove, and I don't think that's a good idea.
Right. I think I did decide to pick up a bluff in this spot because I decided that these guys are just so fucking weak.
No, I do think that King Queen is like very, very high up in his range though, by the way.
Yeah. So they end up folding, which is really fucking weird now that I can see his hand. I'm pretty sure when I save this replay, I might have because I just pop it up sometimes and just copy paste the link real quick, don't even watch it. I didn't even notice that I could see it. That's crazy. He played that about as bad as he fucking could.
You know, so how much did you raise it to there?
2.5.
2.5.
Into like 3.
That's interesting. I guess the nice thing about that is that this fold and sold guy, he has to call before he knows what the other guy's doing.
Yeah, that's fair.
And the other guy is weaker. Like fold and sold, I think is
Honestly, if this guy
likely to have
doesn't
the
just
higher
flat that
range.
two, I don't know if I raise there.
Yeah, yeah. I think that helps you a lot
Yeah,
because fold and sold has a much harder time calling with the other guy behind.
this guy's obviously weak, but yeah,
That guy,
exactly. He has to worry
they're right.
about.
The ranges go in order. Fold and sold has the stronger range than it's the player guy because he, like, I think he's like often just gonna have like a draw that turned into a pair or something like that.
Yeah. All right.
Um,
Yeah. That
so
makes sense.
maybe that's not too bad considering how monumentally weak they both look. And like
Yeah.
I said, like King Queen is like very very top.
Yeah, that's
of-
absurd. Now that I can see his hand, it's like holy fuck, man. That like
Mhm.
I don't know. I guess he just yeah. I don't know. I don't know how
Part
he
of it
folds.
part of
how
it is
past he
not
played it.
necessarily how strong their exact hand is. Part of it is how strong they perceive their hand to be, right?
Yeah.
And they both obviously perceived their hands to be very weak.
Yeah.
And so that's important in getting a bluff off.
Right. All right. Let's do one more hand because I need to cruise to the gym here.
Yeah, I have to get going soon too, but
Cool.
it's been a lot of fun actually.
Yeah. Yeah. I've like I said, I always kind of wanted to do something like this and even bring like different people on or just make it a learning experience for everybody and kind of see what we can get out of it. So ace king off here in the big blind, early position, short stack, obviously a recreational player.
Yeah.
Limps, cut off. No, I'm sorry. Hijack puts in an isolation raise of 4x. The button flats. Small blind folds. Obviously, we're going to be squeezing 1,000% of the time here.
No other play.
Nope. So we make it 10. Probably kind of. Well,
So I'm wondering if I was gonna say, can you size up a little bit here?
Yeah, I know. I probably
Being out of position.
My like default that I started doing forever ago when like Chris gave me this formula is like pot, like the total money in the pot times 2 plus their bet. I guess it's not exactly because I didn't factor in these blinds, but
Yeah, I think you size up a little bit
like
more
11
here.
or 12.
Yeah, something like that. It's not a huge deal, but I would like to size up a little bit because you're doing all you're doing is 5x the bet sizing, but like it's it's essentially a squeeze situation and you're playing out of position, so I think you can get a little bit more money in there.
Okay, that makes sense. Limper folds, original razor folds, button jams.
It's just like easy call or whatever. Like sometimes he has aces, but that's the only hand he's doing this with. That's like you're not beating,
Yeah. So.
I mean, sometimes he'll have kings, but like mostly
he just had ace king. So yeah, I
think aces. I think it's like either aces or like a low pocket pair. I've seen people do this with like twos.
Yeah.
Twos through like tens. Maybe, actually, if we think about the equities you have against all those hands, and we thought about it, maybe that's wrong. I think he can maybe do it with like ace queen or ace jack too. He's just like
and even with those lower pairs, I mean, with the money already on the pot, I don't think we're folding anyways because we're pretty close.
I mean,
to flipping
yeah, that's true. That's true. There's a lot of dead money in the pot. I was thinking you were a little bit deeper. But
yeah,
with the dead money in the pot, you have to call there absolutely.
Yeah,
because it's going to be a coin flip a lot.
And
you don't want to.
I had a note on him that he was kind of a weird spazzy fish, and I specifically actually remember us 3-betting this guy a few times because his button is my big blind and his cutoff is my small blinds. Like, it might have just I don't know. It's obviously super weird for him to just flat. So this obviously kind of shows you what type of player is if he just flats that raise. But yeah, weird. Weird. I don't even know why. I guess I took that down.
Well played though. I mean,
obviously we're just whatever. If he has aces or kings somehow, then he just gets paid. So